Hey, I'm Nick DiMatteo, and welcome to Season 7, Episode 19 of Music is Not a Genre. This is actually interview edition number 40, and I'll be introducing my guests in just a minute. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening. Listeners, go to youtube.com/@musicisnotagenre. You get a video for every episode of this podcast. Watchers, go to nickdimatteo.com/musicisnotagenre if you'd rather not see our lovely faces and just listen. And everybody go to patreon.com/musicisnotagenre to support this podcast, my band rec, and everything I do. And quick mention, as I have been mentioning the last couple episodes, I am on a new network now, which means I'm also looking for new sponsors. So anybody out there who'd like to advertise anything, please just contact me. Send me a message, however you want to do it, and we'll see what we can work up. Let's get right to the guest. Today, my guest is Qais Masri, known as Q. He's the founder of Q Music Co. He's also the writer of Press Play on Your Music Career, which we'll be talking about. It's available on Amazon and other outlets. He is a teacher at MPW, Music Production for Women, which I'm very curious about as well. He's worked with most major labels, and something I can relate to, he is a new father. Q, how are you today?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. So, first question, what's it like being a new father?
It's incredible. It's harder than it looks. I feel there's a lot of parts that no one tells you about, but overall, it's really like such a blessing.
That's awesome. Congratulations too, by the way.
Thank you, brother.
I have 3 kids, so I've been through it, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's right. You have some catching up to do. You're right though. It's a wonderful thing. It's harder than anybody says it is. But the longer you do it, the more rewarding it is. So you got 100%. A lot to look forward to. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So I would venture to say that the fans of this podcast don't know who you are. So before we get into anything else I mentioned, why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you come from, a little bit about your background, and what got you into this business?
Definitely. Well, my name is Q. I've been working in the industry for around 12 years-ish. I really started off by chance, to be completely honest. A friend of mine, I'm a nerd of the industry and I love the industry. And a friend of mine was like, manage me, please. I was like, I don't know anything about managing. What do you mean? He's like, no, you know all these people, you know how to get me in the right rooms, you know, all of these things. I was like, all right, cool, we'll give it a shot. One thing led to another. I started looking into marketing services for my artists, and I couldn't really find anything that was solid at that time. So I was like, all right, I need to kind of create my own services or my own marketing plans. So I started working on that, and little by little, it got a little better. And once it got better, some of my other friends who were also artists started noticing. They're like, yo, can you do the same thing for me? I was like, definitely, 100%. So I started doing it for a bunch of other people. And then at some point, word started getting out. I started getting like requests from random artists or friends of friends of friends. I was like, I'm not going to technically do it for free. So I started charging, and I didn't really know. I was like, how much do I charge? $100? And people would be like, yeah, definitely, here. I'm like, oh, no way. And then, so I decided to make it as an actual company and make it as a service. And that's really where I kind of started in music. So we kind of started, our main focus was marketing. Our main and only focus really was marketing. And then throughout the marketing stages, I started noticing a lot of the artists that we work with struggling with their current distributors. And at that stage, I feel a lot of like the people that I worked with were on the DIY distributors. So DistroKid, TuneCore, CD Baby, all of these guys. So I was like, okay, like, I want to create a better option for you guys. So I started looking into creating a distribution company. It took me a couple of years, but eventually we ended up creating our own distribution company, and we launched it. And then after launching my distribution company and kind of working it for a few years, I started noticing a lot of the artists don't necessarily make a lot of money. because most artists were only depending on the royalties from us, the distributor. And that the math wasn't mathing for me. Like that didn't make sense for me, where you have an audience and people are only paying you 0.004 cents every time they come to your shop, kind of thing. So I started again with a friend. I was like, listen, you should be making way more money. And I started kind of teaching him how to generate income from his music or from his audience. And then same story kind of repeated itself. Another friend was like, yo, can you help me do it? I was like, definitely. And then I was like, okay, maybe I should start teaching this or like doing it as a service for artists. And this is kind of where I'm currently at. Again, kind of like coaching and helping artists to generate income from their audience.
Wow. And by the way, we're going to have links to, the company and all that for anybody who is more interested. But so you said early on, and it's a very simple phrase, you said my artists. So where did those artists, like, what were you before you started doing all this? Are you a musician yourself, or were you an agent? What do you mean by my artists?
So by my artist, it had different stages. So on the marketing side, when I said my artists were just like clients, basically. So people that have used my services. And once again, we started the distribution company. When I say my artists, again, it's clients. So it's people that use us as the distributor.
But I mean, you were initially saying, like, before you even started the company, and that your friends started asking you, and that's kind of how everything kind of snowballed.
Exactly.
Where did any of that come? Like when you were, I don't know, out of high school or whatever, what were you doing that got you to even know all of these people?
To be completely honest, like fate and like
Wow.
pure chance. I gravitated towards the music industry and music in general. I was like, again, the biggest music nerd.
Yeah.
Like when an album comes out, I'm taking the day off. No one talked to me. Drake's album came out. I'm gonna go home, put it on the speakers, and read every single lyric to every single song.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Love it.
I was always that guy. So I kind of like gravitated towards people in the music industry, and people gravitated in the industry or that are musicians
Yeah.
gravitated to me. And I think we just kind of build these relationships organically, really, not necessarily, again, any business or even a thought of the business. It was
Right.
just like, I love music, you love music. All right. Did we just become best friends? Yes, we did.
Oh my God, I love that. I mean, I look, I feel like, I think this has been the case for a lot of years, but now more than ever, nerds rule the world in a lot of ways. Most of what goes on has something to do with something digital analytics, and all the back end stuff that we take for granted as consumers,
Yeah,
as artists. Somebody created that stuff, or is running it, owns it, or is like who you've done some of that, but
studying
you
it.
then create a company where you are the kind of conduit helping people get to those things in the right way.
Exactly. And it's like, it, when I say nerd, like, I feel it's more like if you're passionate about something, you kind of end up diving deep into it,
Right.
And
Yeah.
same with a lot of the technology that's out there now. Like it's someone that was fixated about a specific thing, like VR, for example. There was a guy that really believed in it and really loved it, and he kept going, not because of money or not because of he had to. It's because he wanted to and he loved it, and he just kept diving deeper and deeper and deeper into it
Uh-huh.
until he created like Oculus Rift or like the first VR thing.
Right.
And then because of his passion and his ruthlessness and his love for it, eventually that company got bought by Facebook for what, like 2.3 or 2 point something billion dollars.
Yeah.
That came out of his love for something. And
Uh,
he's, again, quote unquote, like a nerd into the VR work. Same like with me, or same with, again, any of these entrepreneurs that have a massive passion for something. The same with artists, really. A
Yeah.
lot of like the most famous artists, they were like their passion was making music, and they became nerds, and they started studying how to make a verse, how to make a hook, and what works, what doesn't work, like production. It's
Yep.
just another kind of like word, you know.
Yep. Yep. I think that that's a great point in general, because I think I mean, you can be good at something and just kind of, practice and do it, but to be
Of course.
really good, right, to coast, to be really good and successful to any degree, you have to be that passionate. You have to let your nerd come out and really have it take over, to where you're not stopping until, like you said, you're going all the way down the rabbit hole, you're finding the bottom, and you're coming back out with everything you learned, and
Now you're doing it again
then
and
doing it
again
right,
and
right.
again.
And what I love about that process, because this is something you can relate to, and I think a lot of your clients can relate to, and potential clients especially, is that when you are doing your own thing, you tend to say, well, if I can learn how to do it, I'll do it myself. And that's fine. If you're adept at learning things and you pick it up and you add, and what I've found over the years is, okay, so my first thing was I loved to sing and I love to write songs. Super. Then I know how this song is supposed to sound. So I fell in love with production. Well, in order to produce, you need to know how to
Need
play
to
at
learn it.
least some of the instruments. So
Yeah.
I've had bands, I've hired people, but then there are times where I'm just going to play it. I know how to play it. So I taught myself that. Well, I want to release it. I got to do the artwork, and this is even, like pre CD Baby and stuff like that. Okay, so I've gotten that far. Now I need to press actual physical copies. I need to get the word out. I need to do all of the marketing and advertising. And then the next layer that's added on is the all the digital stuff that came into play in the last 20-25 years, becomes, just an added job that you have to do. And in order to do that and make it mean anything, you need to know the back end of that, how to promote it. You need to know what to do on social media and all this stuff, to the point where you're like, well, I can learn how to do anything, but do I want to do all this? What I really want to do is the thing that I'm the nerd about, that I'm passionate about, which is singing, songwriting, and production, and a little bit the artwork, but that's it. I'd love to just be able to stick to that and have a team or a person or a company take over all the rest of the stuff with input, with people saying,
Hmm.
well, I see where you're coming from here, but my vision is this or whatever. But at least you're not spending hours every day, every week, every month on things that you're not really passionate about.
Yeah, totally understand. Totally understand. And the thing is, I feel a lot of artists are in a similar position as you, where it's like, or had a similar mindset. But at some points, you have to invest in yourself or invest in your passion if you want to turn it into a business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like if you just want to make music for the love of music, totally understandable. Make it, release it. If you don't care about numbers, if you don't care about making money, you have your job, you're happy with your job, you just do it for literally the love of it, 100%. But if you do want to turn it into a business, you kind of do have to learn a lot of business things, you know? And again, similar to my story, I didn't know how to run a business. I learned. My passion was music, you know? And but I ended up learning how to do marketing. My passion became marketing, but I ended up learning about the distribution work, how that works. How can I set up a business? How can I get my own domain? How can I buy a website? How can I get a payment solution? Like all these things that are extras, but they support your dream,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes as artists, before you get to the point where it's like, I need a team and I want a manager, usually, like, as a manager, you won't necessarily um, want to work with an artist that doesn't have his business together
Yeah.
and doesn't like if you come to me and you as a musician you're generating 10 $20,000 a month. As a manager, 20% for me is 2,000, maybe $4,000 a month. That makes a little bit sense, you know? But if
Mm-hmm.
you, as a musician, you're generating 100, $200 a month,
Yeah.
I come in as a manager, I'm taking 20%. That means I'm only making $40 a month. That means I need a job. That means I'm not probably going to give you my 100% because I have a 9 to 5, because I
Yeah.
need to pay for my rent and I need to feed my kid and I need to pay for this and that, you know?
Right. Right.
So that's kind of where I try to preach to artists sometimes, that I do understand you want to do what you love, but if you want to do what you love for the rest of your life and make it the only thing you do, you kind of need to at least put in some extra work in the beginning, until you can kind of entice or afford a manager, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. You have to be willing to do your own work and then know when the time is right to bring on other people to work with you, you know.
Exactly.
And it's just, I mean, it's an old saying, and you shouldn't even have to repeat it, but it's time is money, right? And when you know, and that really is what it is. The more complicated life gets, or the more things you want to do with your life or with your career, you're like, well, am I going to spend all of the time and have no time left for anything else, or the actual passionate pursuit or family or whatever it is? Or am I going to trade some of that time for paying money for somebody else to take that off my plate? And I've done the work and I'm prepared and whatever, but what might have taken, you know, 10 hours a week or whatever it is now like an hour, and you hand it
Yeah.
off, and that's that. I mean, to me, if and when an artist can afford something like that, it's absolutely worth it.
I agree with you 100%. And it goes down to even the smallest things. You know, I always like tell, again, artists or like anyone really that is working for something, you have to invest something. Whether it's you either invest time or you invest money,
Yep.
you know? And like even on the marketing side, I'm like, listen, you can't say, I don't want to create content and I don't want to spend money on marketing.
Mm-mm.
If you want your song to grow somehow, there are free ways to do it. And you can, again, you'll have to invest time into creating content, doing submissions, sending out emails, creating relationships, all that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't want to do that, again, if you don't want to invest in time, you have to invest in money
Yeah,
to
100%.
get those same results. And same with exactly what you were saying, which is time. So if if you can afford the process taking you a year to learn how to sing, and you can start singing next year, and you're doing free classes on YouTube, definitely makes sense. But if you want to release your song today and start recording today, you can probably just pay someone to teach you, to get you there much faster, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And that is just the concept of, again, investments. It's time versus money. What do you have more of, or what are you willing to let go of?
Yeah, what you're willing to let go of. That's a great phrase. Absolutely. I had this talk with a group I'm a part of, a bunch of singer songwriters who generally produce our own music, and a lot of them were complaining about, well, I'm always posting online. I'm doing all the, you know, the stuff, and, you know, saying, hey, I've got a new song or a new album, and I don't get anything back. And I'm like, and I thought about it, and I'm like, you're investing like maybe this much time per week and this much money, zero money per week, and expecting way more results than you could possibly get from that little of an investment. So you either need to be doing your social 3 hours a day or whatever it is, or spending more money to get, you know, the get it to the right people or get the right people to do it for you. Because and that's your investment. You get a return on your investment.
100%,
Mm.
100%. It's kind of like companies, you know, like they hire people. Why do they hire people? Like the owner of the company can probably do it himself, but he'll go and hire an expert as the, I don't know, the marketing manager or
Yeah.
the financial manager. The owner of the company can learn whatever he wants, and
Right.
it's all available online.
But
So it's like, do you sit as the owner and learn all the marketing stuff, or do you hire a marketing manager? You
right.
know,
Right.
do you sit and learn? It will take you a year to learn how to set up the financial system, the like all these things, or do you hire a financial manager?
Yeah.
And same goes to everything. So again, it is available, and you can learn it.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to, you can do it. Or, but if you're not willing to, you have to pay someone that already learned it, and again, will get you there a little bit faster with less mistakes.
Yeah, and who knows it better. And we're going to talk about more of the detail of that and what you do and your book and the company in the second half of this interview. Stick around, everybody, for this short break, and we will be right back with Q. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of Music is Not a Genre. If you'd like to learn more about this podcast, if you'd like to learn more about the music I do with my band Rec or any other projects or anything else about me, go to nickdematteo.com. That's Nick, DEMATTEO.com. And everything is there. There's even a link to a merch store where you can get t-shirts and mugs and hats and totes and notebooks and so many other things. I'm always adding new products there. Great way to support the podcast. And finally, go to patreon.com/music is not a genre if you'd really like to show your support. My fans and lovely family there get exclusives and other perks and early releases, and they get to suggest topics for future podcasts as well. Thanks for listening to the mid-roll. Now back to the show. All right, we are back with Q from Q Music Co. And we've been talking a lot about the business and artists and what artists can and can't do and don't want to do and shouldn't do and all of that, and a little bit about your background and everything. And that to me is a perfect lead in to two topics that I really want to get into, which is your book and your company. So dealer's choice, you're the guest. Which one would you like to talk about first?
So I guess we can discuss the book a little bit first.
Okay, so the book is Press Play on Your Music Career, which Q was gracious enough to give me a copy of, and I read through it. And I gotta say, what I love about it the most is how concise and organized it is. You lay it out, you get to the point, you go into detail in each section. There's it's not, hey, writers want to go into stories and all that stuff. That's great. That's a different kind of book. You just say, just like the title, if you want your music career to move forward, this is what you need to do.
100%. And this is really the way that I kind of wanted to structure it and wanted to write it. That it's meant to be a playbook. You know, you literally go on page number one, and this is where you start as an artist. So page number one, we start discussing distribution before you make your song. So the book isn't necessarily on how to write music or on the creative side of the music. It's more on, okay, you have a song. The song is written, song is ready to go. You have the artwork, it's produced, it's mixed, it's mastered. You're ready to go. What do you do? And that's where, again, the book starts walking you through the entire process. So again, step number one, we start discussing distribution. So find a distributor that works for you. There's, again, hundreds of distributors out there, but everyone offers a little bit of differentiator, right? Some are free, some offer more services, some take percentages. It all depends on kind of where you are in your career and what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Now, step number two goes into other royalties that every artist kind of deserves and owns. So a lot of artists don't know that when you create your song and you release it and someone streams it, it has 5 different kinds of royalties. So and one of them is paid by your distributor. So there's 4 other types of royalties that a lot of artists never collect. And what people should understand is that money is being collected on your behalf nonetheless. So if you don't claim it, I think you have up to 3 years. After 3 years, that money just kind of goes into circulation and gets spread out between all the other clients that are collecting it.
Mm, wow. I didn't know
So
that.
we start going through that process. So when you write a song, again, you want to have your distribution ready, you want to have a PRO, you want to be signed up to Sound Exchange, Song Trust, and you want to collect mechanical royalties as well. So with the MNC. So
Mm,
these are just kind of like the basics. And this is again kind of how I structured the book is it's the basics, the things that are quote unquote requirements in my eyes.
hmm
You
hmm
need to have your royalties, which is the base of your business, set up properly, and then then the song goes live. How does the song goes live? You need a release plan. After the release, what happens? What assets do you need for the release plan and after the release? And once the song is released and is marketed, how do you go into marketing? What kind of marketing do you need? Uh, what to look for? How to pitch for playlists? How to pitch to editorial playlists? How to find independent playlisters? All these things, it's kind of like literally a roadmap
mm. Yeah.
a roadmap of when you make a song from the day you have the song ready until the day you do a show. And it kind of explains all the different steps that need to be taken to get you linearly to that show part.
Yeah. You know, I'm listening to you and I read the book. I've done some of this myself. And as we talked about, in the first half, some I'm, hiring people or getting a team, whatever. And even with all that, there's a part of my brain as I'm listening that's just glazing over, like, oh man, that's just so much, and I know, like, I used to read, in like hardcover industry books. I'd go to music conferences and buy books and find all that information. It's like swirling in my head. And again, it's sort of like we said, it's not that I or other people don't have the ability to understand and learn this stuff. And it's not even that it's rocket science or that there are a million steps, but there are quite a few steps that you need to take and things you need to do. And you're very good at talking about and explaining it, and obviously it because you wrote a book about it and that's what your business is and everything. And still listening to you, I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with any of it, and that's kind of what we're getting to, which is the two options or three options here. One is go find the information yourself, take all the hours you want and write it all down and figure it out. Two, get a book that explains it to you. So press play on your music career, bullet points and very clearly laid out. I mean, to me, you know, I in a way, I mean, I in a way would almost prefer to get the hardcover version, because then I could use it as a checklist and be like, okay, I did that, I did
100%.
that, I did that, like, or whatever it is, because it's that clearly laid out. Like you said, it's a roadmap. And then the third option would be, well, and if you don't even want to do that much, you can't even read a book, then hire somebody who knows what they're doing, which would be somebody like you. But before we get to that end of it, I think that uh I I I will say this. The fact that you sent me the book last week, and there was a chance that we were going to do this interview then, and then it fell through. And I thought, and at the time I thought, am I going to have time to read this book before I talk to you? But it's an easy read. You breeze through it. And yes, I would recommend, first of all, buying the book, but second, don't just read it once, because just like with this talk we're having, a lot of that information is going to go in and out of your head. And if you're serious about what you're doing, you need to go over it again and again to really understand not just what these steps are, but why you're doing them and why it's important to not skip any of those steps, you know?
100%. And again, like I I do understand this mentality, and I do understand that again, a lot of the people that I work with are in do have that mentality. So when writing the book, I kind of try to remove all the fluff, you know?
Yeah.
Now, there is a little bit of fluff where it's like explaining things for someone, like, again, to understand. So I talk about distribution. So I do have like some parts where I'm explaining what a distribution company is, for example, or we talk about the PRO, what the PRO is. But at the end of the day, and at the end of each chapter, and at the end of the book, I do have checklists. So if technically you don't want to understand any of it, you can just go to the end of each chapter and be like, all right, sign up to a distributor. These are the options. You go in, you look at all three options, pick one. Sign up to a PRO. These are your options. Sign up to Songtrust. Just go to the Songtrust website. Sign up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at the end of the book, I also kind of like have a little bit of a checklist that is like, all right, if you don't want to read the entire book, you start here. Step number one, step number two, step number three, step
Yeah.
number four.
Yeah.
This is it. You know,
Nice and
and
easy. Yeah.
exactly. I try to make it as easy as possible because not everyone likes to read. Sorry. Not everyone likes to read. Not everyone is willing to sit there with like a 500-page book and like go through it over the next week. It's
Yeah.
like I think it's 80 pages or 70 pages.
Something
It's
like
you
that.
can go through it in one sitting. It's not like a book that you can spend a week with. You can literally
Yeah.
just go over it and start working. Even while you're going through it, you can start doing the things.
Yeah. Right.
There's action steps. It's all
Right.
action steps. So like again, sign up here, sign up there, create a Meta advertising account, create a TikTok ad account. So like just follow these steps
Yep.
to get the fastest way to the money. How they say that.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and right, and that's kind of why I say read it through once, kind of get a feel for it, but then when you read through it again, I like your idea, which is okay. Now that I know what's happening, let me just take it step by step. You know.
And do the things. And that's something I feel that I always kind of preach is like start. You know,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
we all have ideas and we all want to be and we all want to do this and that. But a lot of times we get lost in the perfectionism of things and
Mm.
lost in the studying of things and the thinking of things. But again, the fastest way to the money is start right now. Like
Yeah.
while you guys are with us on this podcast, start today.
Oh, I
Do like
love
open
that.
your website today. Sign up to your distributor today, right now. After you finish listening to this podcast, go and sign up. If you're not collecting from your PRO, sign up to a PRO. Pause this podcast right now and
Yeah.
just search in Google PRO. You will find the options. They're not a lot in the states. It's like I think three. So you have ASCAP and BMI as the top two.
Yep.
Just sign up to one of them.
Yep.
And we
Yep.
wait for
Let's do
you.
it.
We're here. Just pause us and go create your account. Come back and listen to the rest of the podcast.
I love that. We're gonna okay. Let's wait. Let's have them pause. Ready? Go. All right, you're back. You did it. Okay. I mean, that's the advice you're getting here. And I what I love about that is that you're never going to be quote unquote ready where everything is exactly the way you want it to be and all your ducks are in a row and the thing that you created was perfect. None of that. If what you want to do is move forward, the only way to move forward is to take those steps.
Right
Yep.
now.
Right now.
Exactly.
Right now. And yeah, and a book like this, I mean, it really does help. And you say PRO and it's performance rights organization, and you talk about ASCAP BMI, all that stuff is explained in the book. And the good thing about it, like you said, is, but you're not going to go into deep histories of any of this. You're just explaining it, just enough to know why and what's going on. You're welcome to go and look up more information about it if you're that, much of a beginner, and that's great. You got to start somewhere, but this really gets you to those kind of action items, to the steps you need to take.
100%.
Yeah. And so along with that, of course, some of those steps are things that you do. And, I'm full disclosure. I am dipping my toe into the waters of Q Music Co. Again, out of the generosity of Q here. You sound like an all powerful being, or sci-fi. Like, I love that name. There's a just Q, just Q. I mean, it's excellent. Yeah. It's the best. And so that comes through Q Music Co. And we've kind of just touched on your knowledge and where you come from and what you do, but we haven't gotten into the real detail of what is Q Music Co. and what does it do.
Definitely. So I guess like the conversation about the book kind of leads us to where we're going. So I did explain a little bit in the beginning that we still do have the marketing agency. So we do a lot of marketing for we've done for the major labels, and of course we work with a lot of indie. So we've worked with superstar level artists, and we've worked with thousands of independent, just starting out artists.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we also have our distribution company. So again, a distribution company is something similar to CD Baby, DistroKid, TuneCore. So that's what a distribution company is. And basically, a distribution company is what you need to get your music onto the streaming platforms, which we call the DSPs, digital streaming platforms, Spotify and so on. And we collect the royalties for you, and we give you the royalties that you basically we collected on your behalf. Now, last but not least, what I'm most passionate about and what I currently focus on 100% of my time is the coaching business. So again, I kind of work with artists where I help them set up their business to start generating some kind of income. So again, we kind of look at the distribution side of things. I give them recommendations, tell them how to utilize their current distributor, how to make the best out of your distributor and take all the opportunities. We sign up to all the royalty collection societies, so your PRO, Sound Exchange, Soundtrust, and the MNC. And then after that, we start monetizing your audience. So something again that I've been noticing a lot is when someone has, let's say, 10,000 monthly listeners or 20,000 monthly listeners. Our current generation has been so influenced by TikTok and Instagram that numbers seem very small to us when they're very big. So when you say 10,000 monthly listeners, a lot of people say, "Oh, that's still pretty small." I look at it as, "Man, that's like a small city. What do you
Yeah.
mean it's small?"
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
And sure, you're not generating enough money from Spotify if you have 10,000 monthly listeners, but if you can monetize 10% of that audience, you can generate a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I always kind of do this like little calculation. So I'm like, if you have 100,000 monthly listeners and you monetize 10% of that, so that's 10,000 people. If those 10,000 people pay you $10 each throughout the entire year, so if you sell them one T-shirt, let's say, through the entire year, that's $100,000.
Right. Yeah.
If you're only depending on Spotify, you're probably making $400, $500 a month. Over an entire year, that's $5,000 through the entire year.
Yeah. Big difference.
Versus, again, if you only sell one small T-shirt and you sell it at only $10 and you only monetize 10% of the audience,
Mm-hmm.
that's $100,000. So there's a massive jump, you know? And that's and of course, there's many other tools that we work with, like selling unreleased music and communities and so on. And that's kind of like where I really love to dive into and show artists that you don't have to be a quote unquote starving artist.
That's incredible.
If you have a small audience and you monetize it, it can become your main business and you can be, again, quote unquote successful. Depends on, of course, your definition of success. But to me, I'm like, if you can pay your rent, if you can pay your bills, if you can afford a nice car, if you can afford eating, like that is success.
I agree. I fully agree. And everyone's measure of success is different, but to me, success has always been making a living in your chosen profession,
Exactly.
at least that. And what I love about what you're saying is, yes, the wisdom, the conventional wisdom is big numbers aren't big anymore because there are so many bigger numbers. And it is true that there are certain entities that won't even look at you if your numbers aren't high. But your question then would be, well, are you just going to wait until your numbers are high enough for somebody to, pluck you out of obscurity because you got a million, of anything? And oh, now a label wants to hear your music or something. That's great. That's fine. But what do you do up until that point? And what you're saying is something I've always believed, which is 10,000, 5,000, 6, 20,000, whatever it is still a significant number. And if you know what you're doing, you can still do something with that number and with those people.
100%. And this is where the concept of 1,000 true fans really comes in.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
if you have 1,000 real fans
Mm-hmm.
and you really serve them and monetize them properly, like, you can really be rich,
Yep.
because the 1,000 true fan concept is it's 1,000 fans that pay you $100 each through 12 months. So through the entire year. So the
Yep.
$100, you can split it into one show at, like, let's say $40, a t-shirt at $20, um, a sweatshirt at $60. That's it.
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
three things that you sold them through the entire year,
Right.
and it's only 1,000 people. So it's 10% of 10,000 monthly listeners.
Yeah.
If you can monetize these three, and like get the fan to give you $100 throughout 12 months, so,
Mm-hmm.
so throughout the entire year, you
Mm-hmm.
made $100,000.
Yeah.
That's $100,000.
It's incredible. Yeah.
So that's like the mentality that I try to kind of preach and show artists that it really is doable. You don't need the $1 million. You don't need the label. You don't need
Mm.
all of these like crazy things. If you want to be really successful, like, it is doable.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about 1,000. If you have 2,000 true fans, that's $200,000.
Yep. Yep.
And that's only 2,000. So a lot of people have thousands of followers on Instagram, right? But
Yeah.
it's like, if you're not using it correctly, it's just vanity numbers. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I have 10,000 followers on Instagram.
Right.
How much money from it? I don't. I just use it to post my music.
Yep.
How many views did your last reel get? Oh, only 100, because Instagram doesn't really show my stuff anymore. Like, all right, so
Wow.
do we just depend on Instagram? And like, what does the 10,000 monthly followers mean if only 100 people or 1,000 people are seeing your post? Which is something I think everyone kind of struggles with is, oh, I have, again, 10,000, 20,000 followers, but my post is only getting this many views or this many likes. It's
Yeah.
because of the algorithm isn't necessarily showing your stuff to all your followers.
Mm-mm. No. Yeah, I think, and I can see why you're passionate about this, because to me, you offer a lot of services at the company and all of that, and I am excited to do some of that. But the idea of coaching makes so much sense, because unless you are the luckiest person in the world, success is mostly mindset. And how many times we as artists struggle where I put out a song, nobody really listens to it, or out of 100 people, one person said, I thought that sucked. And it's always the negative feedback that you take in. And if you lose sight of the fact that you're already successful in ways you don't know, and you may even be leaving that success on the table, so to speak, because you don't know what to do with it, and then knowing what to do with it changes your mindset, because then you're like, oh, that actually means something, that counts. And that keeps you motivated to be like, well, I had a bad day, or this didn't go the way I wanted to, or maybe I just missed what I should have seen that day, which is this was another step forward. What can I do with that step? And it built that mindset builds to the point where you're like, oh, I'm actually moving forward, I'm actually succeeding. And that's why I feel like, yes, take advantage of all the services, but this coaching, like, it will change your ability to do what you need to do.
And honestly, the reason why it became like such a big part of me, because I started seeing it changing people's lives,
Hmm.
literally. Again, like, when someone has 100,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, but only making like let's say $1,000 a month. So that's $12,000 a year. $12,000 a year is not gonna like really have big impact on you, and you can't have it as your only source of income.
Mm.
But if again you end up monetizing your audience, and all of a sudden you jump from 12,000 a year to 100,000 a year, or to, let's say, not 100, let's say you go to 24,000 a year. So it really does have a massive impact, and I'm seeing people's lives literally change before my eyes.
God,
So,
that's
and
incredible.
I'm like, this is, every artist should do this. And again, you can either work with me or you can learn it. But let this podcast be kind of the initiation of, again, it's time or money. You can either pay someone and get to the money faster, or you can like spend time and actually learn it and get to the money for free. It'll take a little bit longer, but you'll eventually get there if you really like put in the hours.
Yeah. And I understand that mental barrier of not wanting to take that step, as far as artists not making that much money at what they do. And I want to keep everything I make, so I got to do this myself, because otherwise then all that little bit that I make is going to somebody else, whatever. But it's a process that is, it is like actual investment. Like if you think about the stock market or something, you put $100 in the stock market now, and the next month you lose $10. Oh man, I wasted the money. And then you make those $10 back. If you keep at it long enough and really build on that investment, that 100 can be 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is. And so don't think about, oh, I'm spending this money on this thing that I'd really rather keep because I'm not making that much money. Think of it as, if I spend this money now, that's the potential to make that much more money a year from now.
It's an investment, literally. It's
Yep.
you put it literally as of a stock market. You're going to put $1,000, and within 6 months, a year, those thousand will become, like in this case, hopefully will start generating 1,000 every month for you. So
Yeah.
it's like an evergreen system. Once you have all your business together, as long as you're making music, it's generating money. You
Yeah.
know, as long as you're making music, you're collecting all the royalties. As long as you're making music, or as long as your music is live, you're collecting all the royalties.
Yep.
You know, as
Yep.
long as your music is there and you have your merch store and all of that stuff, people will, even if you're not releasing new music, people will kind of find you. And there is going to be someone that becomes a fan and wants to buy a t-shirt, or
Yeah.
wants to what like support you somehow.
They're out there. Yeah. They're out there. Just
Exactly.
got to reach them. Yeah. So this is press play on your music career. This is Q Music Co. This all this stuff comes together. Uh, the coaching and the services. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with?
Definitely. I just want to like kind of end it by saying first, thank you so much to Nick. And I kind of already told you, but I am a huge fan.
Oh,
And it's
yeah,
like really like such
yeah.
a pleasure for me to be
Thank
here. And I
you.
think this conversation could have went on for another like 3 hours.
Agreed.
But we'll keep it light. And of course, for any other fan like me, anyone that is listening to the podcast, anyone that is trying to learn, anyone that is trying to get some information, we want to offer free distribution to all of Nick's fans. So anyone that is interested and is looking for distribution, please reach out to us and say, I saw Q on podcast, and we'll give you free distribution. And of course, anyone that is interested in the coaching as well, you get a special discount, the Nick discount, I'm going to call it.
Wow. Okay.
And we'll try to help you as much as possible.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. And I mean, the pleasure on my side was equal. It is amazing talking to you. And you meet a lot of people in this business and any business, and a lot of it has to do with vibe, whether or not you found your people and you just feel like my people. And I love that. And
Appreciate
I
it.
am very excited for the people listening and watching this episode, that they have an opportunity to work with you, with the next special as well. That's very, very cool of you. Yeah, thank you for spending this time with me.
Of course. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody out there for watching and listening. As I mentioned, links will be below. If you're watching, you will have seen the link already, but please check the text. And why don't you tell people just a little quick link now before we leave?
Definitely. So you can find the book on Amazon, press play on your music career, and all other platforms. And you can also check out our website at www.qmusicco, so qmusicco.com. You can find our distribution services there. You can find our marketing services there. And of course, you can sign up for the coaching.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. And thanks again, everybody, for watching and listening. As always, my objectives here are music, conversation, and connection. And I will talk to you next week.